The James Show Podcast.
The governor of Texas, I know, good to see you too. All right, enough of that. So the governor of Texas did something yesterday that I think is going to see an interesting storyline follow it. He designated a couple of groups terrorist organizations. Now, have we seen this before? I was trying to look for an answer for this. Maybe you know. The United States as a country hasn't designated the Muslim Brotherhood or CARE as a terrorist organization. So have we seen a state just leapfrog the national government like that? And that's not whether or not he's right or wrong. It's just, if something doesn't have a precedent, then this is new territory and should be treated as such. If it does have precedent, I need to know about it and see what happened last time this went down. But here's the report from WFAA.
Well, two Muslim civil rights groups are pushing back tonight after Governor Abbott labeled them foreign terrorist organizations. The governor accused the Muslim Brotherhood and the Council on American Islamic Relations, otherwise known as CARE, of supporting global terrorism and twisting state law through intimidation and violence, a designation that bars both groups from owning land in Texas. Tonight, CARE says it won't be deterred, calling his claims defamatory and lawless. They just issued a letter pointing to decades defending civil rights and condemning unjust violence, including terrorism.
So this is something that has effects other than, I'm putting a mean label on you. Without the ability to buy land, that's going to have a big effect on it. Look, if they own land right now, do they have to divest it? We'll be answering a bunch of these questions. These aren't all rhetorical. But I'm kind of fascinated in the fact that Texas has leapfrogged over the United States government, who hasn't labeled the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization yet. But you want to know who has? When you find out who actually has labeled the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorists, you're like, well, what are we waiting on here? So the Muslim Brotherhood's been labeled as a terrorist organization officially by the governments of Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Russia, Jordan, Austria. For some reason, I found two countries that openly support the Muslim Brotherhood that are sort of our allies, Qatar and Turkey. Qatar, the one with the Q. But what the hell is going on? If there's a group out there that Saudi Arabia is like, hey, I think you're taking this Islam thing a little too far. And our politicians in D.C. are like, I don't want to just throw that label around lightly. The hell's going on? So what is the evidence that we have Muslim Brotherhood's a terrorist organization? A lot of it's just financial ties to actual terrorist organizations. I mean, when you tell me that, that they've given ideological support to Hamas, that means nothing to me. Okay, so they have the same religion, or they've said nice things about Hamas. That doesn't make them a terrorist group. Now, actively using resources and supporting Hamas, yes, I can see why that would get that designation. But when you talk about, let's just focus on that one, Hamas. A major point on the ledger that Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization. Hamas in 1997, when they did their 1988 charter, said the wrong date there. They explicitly identified as the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas isn't associated with the Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas is the Muslim Brotherhood. You got that? So we've also seen them linked to court cases that have gone through here in Texas. Remember the Holy Land Foundation? That was the Garland, right? They were convicted back in 2008 of funneling money to Hamas. Of course they're helping Hamas. They made Hamas. They are Hamas. Hamas is them. And I don't want to say like everyone who has anything to do with the Muslim Brotherhood is on the same level as Hamas. But there's definitely a connection there. So I got a video message, or an audio message on Facebook from Jonathan, who had a great reaction yesterday.
Man, I just saw Governor Abbott declared Muslim Brotherhood a foreign terrorist organization or whatever. I'm going off memory, just read it. Which means like out in Josephine where I live, I'm wondering if that means that they're not going to be able to do that Epic City after all. Because I'll tell you this much, like when I go to the Walmart out there in like Wiley, I mean, there's so many, like, ladies in full burqa and again, whatever, like, to each their own. But, I mean, there's a lot of Muslims out there. And, again, not a big deal except for the fact that they don't seem to really like Western civilization all that much.
And the pushback here that you can hear coming from Jonathan isn't because, they're not whites. It's not because he's racist. It's not because they're Muslim or Islamic or non-Christian. He's not being a xenophobe. He's not being a bigot here. He just doesn't like the way they treat their women. Did you hear that? The specific example he brought up? And that is something that bothers me. And why doesn't that bother feminists more? You talk about how you're fighting the patriarchy. This is a real patriarchy. You're fighting pretend sexism and bigotry in America. Oh, yeah, there's a war on women. Sure there is. And then you actually have a society, a religion, an ethos that oppresses women. And you're on their side? You flying Palestinian flags on their behalf? You're not worried that they want to build cities here in Texas where this law that is specifically anti-women sees women as second-class citizens? You're not fighting against that? No, they'll fight against you, though. They'll fight against you. They are melting down right now because Trump called a reporter Piggy yesterday. Piggy. Even if that's true, I think he might have said Peggy, like if that's her name. But let's just go ahead and take the worst case scenario, and I'll play the audio later. Even if he did say Piggy, yeah, that's an ugly thing to say. Women deserve to be treated better. Now, do Islam. If you're upset about Piggy, but you're not upset about the way that women are treated in fundamentalist Islamic societies, you're a hack. You're dishonest. And this isn't a blanket condemnation of all Muslims. I used to work and I was good friends with a Muslim fella, and his sister didn't have to wear a hijab. His mom didn't wear a hijab. In fact, they did a lot of haram things. They ate the cold cut combo from Subway, because it has pork in it. That's haram. Cleo used to wear gold jewelry, which is also haram. So no, if you're a Muslim, that doesn't necessarily make you bad. No one's fussing about Dave Chappelle being a Muslim or Casey Kasem being a Muslim. As long as you assimilate in society, no one's got a problem with you. But when you want to segregate out, when you want to make your own cities, when you want to institute Sharia law, when you want to treat women like second-class citizens, when you want to invade, multiply, and conquer all the countries on planet Earth because you've been driven to do so by your beliefs, that's where we have a problem. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next on The James Show, Chris Putnam from the Dallas Express is going to talk a little bit more about this Muslim Brotherhood designation and then some other Texas news. We have the 10 Commandments ruling. We have the redistricting ruling. We have DART circling the drain, and we'll talk about it all. Chris Putnam back on from the Dallas Express, DallasExpress.com. And I know y'all have some news today, but we'll talk about that probably in the next segment. I want to start with the big headline here. Governor Abbott, first off, I'm a little shocked that Texas did this before it was put through in D.C. How do you explain that one?
That's a great question. A lot of states are, definitely taking a different approach to dealing with these organizations. We're talking about CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood in particular, in terms of designating them foreign terrorist criminal organizations. I don't know that I have a good answer for you there, James, but the governor sure took the lead here in light of a lot of the things that we're seeing in places like Plano, and just the whole episode around Mandami and some of the things that he's claiming he's going to do, and what we've seen in other communities, such as in Minneapolis, where Muslim communities are getting stood up and effectively trying to subvert the local, state, and federal laws. And so in this case, he signed a proclamation, that effectively prevents them from buying Texas land and allowing the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, to sue to shut them down if they do.
Well, I'm waiting for some more in-depth reports to come down on this, because does the Muslim Brotherhood already own land in Texas? And if so, would they have to divest it?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've been looking into that ourselves today. I don't have an answer for you right now, but
someone at the Dallas Express is working on it.
Yeah, in the next couple of days, we'll have some information about if they do. And there's all sorts of ways that obviously that those organizations can route or hide land transactions as well. So it does require a bit of digging.
I see. So the question I already got an email, Facebook message, and a audio Facebook message. Is this going to prevent them from building the Epic City? I know they've tried to rebrand it and give it a new name here, like the Meadows or something, tranquil like that. But is this going to stop the Sharia cities?
Well, I think the intent here is to do just that. If one of these organizations has some ownership or involvement in some of these communities that are sprouting up like Epic City. again, I think there's some questions still about whether there are hard ties to those organizations, and some of that still needs to be reported.
Well, and that's the other thing that this triggers now, and this is kind of a recent law from what I understand. Once we do this Muslim terrorist designation, now Ken Paxton, as the Attorney General, is doing some investigating into, is it just their finances? Is that where, or is that just where it starts?
And well, I flat out labeled them as foreign terrorist organizations, right? And so, again, I think that the idea is that if you can find where either of those organizations has a role or an investment in any of these Muslim-centric communities that are sprouting up in various parts of Texas, that legally they have the ability to go shut them down. And so I suspect that that's the real objective here.
I see. We're talking with Chris Putnam from Dallas Express, DallasExpress.com. It is now the official newspaper of record of North Texas. Because, and the second story I wanted to talk to you about is the one that's related to you guys. Dallas Morning News announced, what was it, 26 layoffs? 46 layoffs?
Yeah,
something like that.
I don't know. The Dallas Morning News announced it. they have a union group there that announced that their group was being outsourced effectively, and it's been expected that since not McClatchy, I apologize. That's the Star Telegram, which is based in New Jersey, but since Hearst Media, the media conglomerate that's based in New York City that now owns the Dallas Morning News, Houston Chronicle, Austin Statesman, San Antonio Express, no relation. They're all New York owned, right? Mm-hmm. And with the Dallas Morning News being purchased by them, some aggressive consolidation was expected. We're seeing these with local media outlets all over the country, hedge funds like the one that the New Jersey hedge fund that owns the Star Telegram, or Hearst Media, who is a much larger media company. They're acquiring all of these local media outlets for the purposes of consolidating them, and consolidating them means reducing local staff and reducing it aggressively. In the case of the Star Telegram, I mean, it's effectively completely managed out of New York City, and they have kind of a skeleton crew of writing staff remaining that's local. They actually have an editorial board member whose permanent residence is in New York City for the city of Fort Worth daily print outlet. They only print 3 days a week now, but that's another story. In the case of the Dallas Morning News, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to see a lot of this, and it's been expected that, a lot of folks that have been working there for decades will be losing their jobs once the merger consolidation is complete.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people saw this coming because who reads newspapers anymore? That's been a contracting business. Far worse than radio has been contracting, and so not shocked by that. Just weird to see it outsourced. We're continuing with Chris Putnam from Dallas Express because there's 3 other Texas stories that I wanted to run by you, specifically one of them's North Texas. But a couple of rulings came down. One of them against the 10 Commandments being put up in classes. And in fact, in the 14 school districts that are bringing the lawsuit, a judge ordered them they have to be taken down. How's this going to end up, Chris? Was this a well-intended law and exercise that's not going to survive the courts?
Well, interestingly, I actually spent time with the sponsor of the legislation, Senator Middleton, who is currently running for Texas Attorney General, the last couple of nights at different events. And he seems very confident that, this was an act by another activist, the far left activist judge, Orlin Garcia, who happens to be a Clinton appointee. And, it's just this continuation of ongoing lawfare against conservatives and conservative legislation. He believes that, it will be ultimately resolved in the Supreme Court in favor of the law that they passed, allowing the 10 Commandments to be displayed in public schools.
Now, that's interesting. How do you think it's going to survive the whole separation between church and state idea?
Well, as you know, there is actually no constitutional requirement for separation of church and state.
Right.
And, what's interesting is many of the same far left activists who opposed the 10 Commandments being displayed in our public schools had absolutely no problem, with educators promoting CRT, race hatred, displaying anti-2A posters in their classrooms, and are the same people defending the hundreds of Texas educators that are actively being investigated by the TEA for publicly celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And look, we learn about a new pedo incident practically every day in Texas public schools by educators and staff. So something has gone wildly wrong with our public school system. And, can't see how displaying the Ten Commandments and reminding folks, of some positive tenets, that we should follow to live our lives correctly can hurt Texas public schools at this point with all that's going on wrong in them.
Well, I also think it would be an interesting experiment. What if we just put the Ten Commandments in like maybe half of the classrooms, and in the other half we let the Ten Commandments out, and we'll see if there was any difference in the progress made by the ones who are at least exposed to some moral code on a regular basis.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting experiment for sure.
All right. The other court case I wanted to run by you, the redistricting map got thrown out by a judge. Now, it's not a done deal. I'm hearing this is already being appealed and could still survive. But will it survive in time for the next election?
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of the same use case, right? And again, that kind of challenge was expected. You find a judge who's kind of friendly to that particular cause and take it to their court, and it might also have to go to the Supreme Court or the Texas Supreme Court, and I think it'll have no problem surviving those tests in the past. Redistricting, as you well know, has been allowed by both parties, and Democrats, you could argue, have redistricted, even more violently in their favor on these matters across the country than Texas has attempted to here. They've just demagogued this particular one because it's convenient to politically.
Well, also, I love the example of Massachusetts. 40% of Massachusetts votes for Republicans. They have 0 congressional representatives out of Massachusetts that are Republican. So really, you people that are so concerned about fairness and gerrymandering, you must be really upset about Massachusetts.
Well, precisely. And there's a local example as well. Dallas County redistricted a number of years ago and purposely drew out the last Republican seat. So there are 0 Republicans on the Dallas County Commissioner's Court.
Oh, that's a great example. That's why we have you on. Chris Putnam from Dallas Express, dallasexpress.com. There is a revolt underway against DART. We have 4 of the members cities that are going to put it to their voters next year on whether or not they should withdraw from DART. Now, I was kind of cautiously optimistic until I saw this interview with the president of DART, or CEO of DART, Nadine Lee. She talked to WFAA, our news partner, and I was kind of pleasantly surprised about how pessimistic she was about the votes. Do you think DART is going to get kicked out of the suburbs?
I think it's too early to tell. I also think it's too early to tell if, this is a negotiating tactic by these member cities to get DART to the table, to make some reform changes they've been asking for a long time. I will say that if it gets to a general election in recent years, we've actually seen citizens, rise up for the first time in a long time and oppose some of these measures. And certainly the residents of those communities aren't seeing a very positive benefit from DART. The ridership is just terrible. Note that they aren't celebrating the ridership statistics, recently. And the crime problem has been just out of control. There was I think we've reported 3 shootings now in the last month. There was a bomb threat just last week. But these things are hard to win. And, and the reason is these bureaucracies are big and they're influential. DART already has this thing stood up called the Dallas Area Transit Alliance, which supposedly is made up of citizens who are DART riders, who oppose these suburbs leaving DART. And so you'll see a lot of money thrown around by a lot of, bureaucratic organizations that will be made to appear to look like grassroots efforts. And that money will be poured into preventing this from happening. We saw the very same thing last year in Dallas on the Dallas Hero Amendments. But just like I said, in that case, the citizens prevailed. And of course, 2 of the 3 Dallas Hero Amendments that, forced the city of Dallas to hire more police officers, fund pensions better, and just generally, commit to a higher level of public safety passed. And so it's a little bit of a different tone these days. And some of the tactics that have been used by these large bureaucracies to protect themselves and their revenue streams and their jobs have not been working as frequently. So is there a chance that it goes away? Sure. I think there's an absolute chance, but the reality probably is they strike a deal. That's kind of how I see it playing out.
I like that theory. I hope it gets struck down, and I hope they don't come up with a deal, but that seems pretty plausible. A couple of statistics I want to put in your head before I let you go here, Chris. Number 1, we learned that the number of commuters in Dallas-Fort Worth who actually use DART 0.6% of communities,
Yeah.
Chris. That's how low it's gotten. Before DART was enacted in 1983, it was 3.4%. So DART has actually driven people away from public transportation. They don't seem to brag about that.
That was
one.
actually my point. And I got very deep into this in Tarrant County on the TexRail commuter line, which they spent billions of dollars on, and it was going to serve less than 1% of the population. And I believe it was a guest that you had the other day, actually, the gentleman who's a former Plano City Council person, who said that the DART subsidy per rider is $75. You could literally buy a tank of gas for a Chevy Suburban for the cost of one ride. That's what the taxpayers
or an
pay.
Uber Black. Also, I hear you guys have an app coming out for the Dallas Express. Finally, you only got 30 seconds, but is it out yet?
No, we've had it out for years. We have a brand new app. It's fantastic. All new look and feel, new features. You can get real-time news alerts, of course. You can custom tailor it to deliver the kind of news that you want to.
All right, enough of the commercial.
Yeah, check it out at the Google Play Store or Apple Store. It's the Dallas Express app. It's totally free.
All right, thank you very much. And this is Steve in Alvarado. You're on WBAP.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, why is everybody making a big deal out of this redistricting? Donald Trump proved that redistricting doesn't help. It's the candidate. He won every district virtually, Democrat and Republican. So why are the Republicans so worried about, they have more candidates that are Democrat than Republican? Is it because we have such weak candidates? And so we're trying to stuff us, with ballots?
So the redistricting is, it's all about the number of congressmen that are in the House of Representatives in D.C. for the Republicans.
I know that.
So that's why they're upset about it. They think it'll be harder to get more, to win these seats. But
they're worried about not being able to win it with a Republican candidate.
Well,
that's why they're trying to get districts with more Republicans or more Democrats in it. And my concern is, what if we have such weak politicians running for those offices that we can't win unless we redistrict? That's horrible.
Well, I don't think that affects the map or the motive to get a new map either way, because we're talking about a map for elections that are going to happen 2, 4, 6, 8 years away, and we don't even know what the candidates look like then. So even if we do have crap candidates now, that's not something that's fixed and permanent. You don't need to make maps based on that. But
I know that, but it just seems to me Donald Trump proved my point. He was the best candidate out there, and he won almost every district, no matter what color of stripes you have on your cat.
Well,
that tells me he was just a great candidate, and we don't have great candidates overall in the Democratic or the Republican Party. I think that's where the weakness is in politicians.
Yeah, and it feels like the NFL, where there's 32 teams that have to have a quarterback, but there's not 32 guys out there who are capable of being an awesome quarterback. Yeah, and that's what you see in politics, too. There's some shining stars on both sides of the aisle. Donald Trump, shining star for Team Red. For Team Blue, it really is Jasmine Crockett, and if y'all roll your eyes at it, it's because you don't like her. Y'all pay attention. She's gonna probably be on the debate stage at least as one of the candidates for president in the next cycle.
Do you think they would ever go to something like have each county have a representative? That way it eliminates everything because the boundary lines are already set.
No, I would like that.
Why not? Explain why. Explain why.
Well, because we would have like 11,000 representatives in the House of Representatives.
Oh, no. How many counties do we have? 100?
100. We have like 240 in just Texas alone.
Okay, but we don't have 240 counties.
Texas? How many? Yeah, Texas has, I don't know. How many counties does Texas have? How many counties does? I think it's like 243 because I've had to look this up before.
Well, look it up for me, please. I'm not very smart.
254. Oh, man, I was one off. Look at me go.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just trying to say maybe there would be an easier way to do this and keep the arguments down if we had better politicians running for office. Well,
actually, I mean, I have an answer for that, but no one's proposing it. In the original Constitution, if we went back and followed that, you got a new candidate for every X amount of population. And then when it got up to 435, they just fixed the amount of representatives. And if we let it go on population, we really would have something like 3,000 candidates. But I could believe that's a better way to run our government, because how easy would it be to kick a congressman out of office if it's just you and like, what was the original number? It was like 300,000 or 38,000. It was something really low. And so if we go back to the founding fathers, it would drastically expand the House of Representatives. But it also thinks, like, how could you buy off the House of Representatives if there's 3,000 of them? And if they did
I agree with that completely.
And how hard would it be for an incumbent to just remain in office for 40 years if it's that easy to replace them because every race is so small?
Yeah, but if you could get that changed where there was so many more seats, you could also include in that change that there was term limits.
Well, I'm not a big fan of term limits. Again, the Constitution didn't put no, I'm not a big fan. The Constitution didn't put term limits on House of Representatives or senators or even the president. And it really is kind of an infringement on your freedom. What if you do have a guy that you like? What if we get a really good guy in there and you want to keep him in there? If they're constantly going to be cycled out, though, then the real control, the incumbent isn't the guy in control. It's the machine. It's the party players that are going to set up and fund all the guys, and they're just going to have puppets that they switch out in their seats, and I don't think that's better.
Well, I just wish we could think of the right thing to do and get it done, because all I see is a bunch of crybabies out there moaning, groaning, pissing, and screaming.
Well, we don't have to think. The founding fathers already wrote it out for us. If we just return government to that, so many of these other problems would go away.
But then somebody needs to bring that up, not other than you. I mean, somebody in Congress needs to bring it up.
I'm out of time. This is a great call. We could have done this for another hour, Stephen Alvarado. All right, coming up next, you're going to hear some clips from the DART president's interview. She's not too optimistic about DART's chances for survival, which makes me very happy. 800-288-9227. It's The James Show on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
The James Show Podcast.